Hi, Easy here. Welcome to a follow-up video for my Penance brand Ignite Elementalist. There's been some big changes that I made to the build since the last video, and I'll explain everything in detail as I showcase the mapping and finally give you guys the POE that a lot of you guys have been waiting for. The main reason why I didn't include it in my last video is because it was so shit that I didn't really want to present that to anyone. Yeah, we're at a much better state than before. So this is a map showcase of a tier 13 factory map. I've been working on my Atlas very steadily. I didn't have a lot of time to play for extended hours over the weekend. So not too far into the mapping state of things, but I am pretty happy with where things are going. I am about to finish my 4-socket watchstones in Valdo's watch. So we are looking at Cyrus pretty soon. Where is this guy? But overall, some of the changes that I made to the build, as you might notice, are that I've started to use Vigilant Strike. So I can't use wands. And because I can't use wands, I don't have any good scepters that I had ready to replace it. But I was just dying too much. I was actually using a staff with the Searing Touch, a 5-link Searing Touch that I got very early. So I was using that because it gave me a lot of damage. But as I got into higher maps, it wasn't the damage that was the issue. It was mostly just dying to random stuff. So I definitely needed a better source of fortification than just a Leap Slam with Fortify support. That only lasts 6 seconds, so if I don't hit something with Leap Slam, then it gets very sketchy. So I went ahead and off a ritual, I found the Vigil Jewel, sorry, which gives your Vigilant Strikes a 12-second duration. And because Vigilant Strike has increased duration on skill gem level and quality, you actually get a lot of a long fortify after one hit. So if you hit it, you can see I get a 30-second Vigilant Strike, or sorry, 30-second fortify, and it's not even at max level or max quality yet. So it's a very common way for casters to get fortify because Vigilant Strike has hits cannot evade modifier on it. So no matter what your accuracy is, you'll always hit. It's very nice. So one thing about rituals is that if you actually kill the map boss, if you rush the map boss, I think the map boss always shows on the ritual. I don't know if that adds to your ritual like tribute number, but it's a struggle every single time I accidentally do it, especially in these higher maps. These guys have a lot of life. My build is definitely more focused towards defensive nature, more defensively at the moment because I'm running very weak weapons. A very weak weapon, almost no additional sources of damage from my gear. That's just all passive tree and a 30% fizz to cold. Fizz is extra cold modifier on the princess as my weapon. So not much other than the base damage of Penance brand to speak of. And yet we're still curring very smoothly, I'll consider. Another change we made is we adjusted our passive tree so we can take glancing blows. It wasn't too big of an adjustment, but we did have to drop Call to Arms. Now, I initially thought dropping Call to Arms would make the build too clunky to use Enduring Cry, but it turns out because we're an Ignite build and because we're a brand build, after we place down our brands, we have a good second or two to do whatever we want. So I am constantly refreshing my Fortify, I'm constantly using Enduring Cry, I'm constantly moving around my Hydrosphere to ensure good uptime on the Ignite from Hydrosphere for Combustion support gem, as well as the curses on my Hydrosphere, which hasn't changed since the last video. So overall the build is running much smoother. I even have Steel Skin now that I have gem slots after freeing up a Leap Slam. So it's been pretty nice. I haven't died too many times since I made all of these changes, especially in the red tier maps. because I was dropping like a fly before with the staff. But even with a huge damage loss, I think I lost like 20% damage from switching from Searing Touch to the Princess and a shield. But I did gain almost 500 life, much consistent Fortify, much consistent way of recovering with on-demand Enduring Cry, which I did have before, but I put it on my left click for the sake of convenience. But now I have it. I have Steel Skin on my left click, so it activates on cooldown. So yeah, as you can see, the map boss appears every single ritual after you kill it. So I'm not sure if you get more tribute or less tribute, but that's one way to amp up your mapping. I'll check all these real quick. Otherwise, I'll just grab the ritual currency. So that was a quick map showcase of a tier 13 map. As for the build itself, I will actually go into Path of Building to give you guys an overview of the changes that I've made. So let me pull up Path of Building. Okay, so here's our skill tree. We made some changes here. So we dropped these nodes because they don't give us that much benefit. We've gone ahead and pathed towards the side because spell damage actually does nothing for our Ignite DPS. And our Ignite DPS is way too high right now. There we go. Yeah, it does nothing. Spell damage does nothing for our Ignite DPS. So you also want to avoid spell damage on your weapon as well for future reference. The main change that we made is instead of pathing towards this left side and down to Call to Arms as such, and picking up life nodes here and there, we went ahead and pathed towards the inside between Templar and Marauder for Glancing Blows, some shield nodes for extra block chance, convenient life node, and this fire damage nodes, as well as Unwavering Stance, because we actually don't evade too many attacks. Like we don't have a source of blind, and we don't use evasion gear, so being able to ignore stuns, getting cannot be stunned is very nice, and then just some life here. Because we went this route, we had to drop all of this, but our life total hasn't changed too much as we have extra life node here. We've also taken a bit of extra skill effect duration here, and brand duration, which is basically the same thing when you look at a brand. But skill effect duration affects things like Immortal Call, Steel Skin, stuff like that, which is very nice. Along with Malevolence and our Lightning Golem, it puts our activations per brand at 10 per brand. So it means that with our Rune Binder, if we attach 2 runes or 2 brands onto the enemy, just 2 casts is enough to reach the max energy, which will give us the max amount of Ignite. So you don't want this number to be less than 10. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll have a much weaker energy explosion due to it being somewhere like 18 stacks or 17 stacks, something like that. And in order to circumvent that, if you have less than 10 activations per brand, you would have to cast it a 3rd time, which is very inconvenient and not what you want out of the playstyle. You want to cast the brands twice and then run away and do other things. Once again, I have the Visual Jewel and Vigilant Strike, which makes Fortify much easier to manage. I also managed to get Uber Lab. So if you check enemies are shocked, it does nothing at the moment. But as soon as you click these 2 nodes, it gives us 20% more damage. Now, I mentioned maybe you can take Breath of Lightning here, but it seems like it's not worth it because the non-ailment effect increase isn't as substantial as getting more life or getting more fire damage here. So I opted to skip that. I still have 10 points left because I am level 20. So I'm thinking about other ways to expand my skill tree. What can we drop? What can we add? What can we sacrifice? Maybe in the form of cluster jewels or in the form of a legion jewel. But for the time being, I think this is a very solid setup. Maybe we can drop this dexterity node once you get gear that has dex on it. But outside of that, I'm very happy with how things are right now. One thing to note about cluster jewel is the Holy Conquest. So if you don't know what Holy Conquest does, is it as it activates, it detaches and jumps to another. It jumps to another enemy if it can. So what that means, as you can see, brands attach to a new enemy every time they activate, no more than once every 0.3 seconds. So what that means is that as soon as you put the brand on a pack, it will instantly ignite, and it will also, the brand will also travel to a new enemy. And because of Penance brand's mechanic where it adds energy to nearby enemies, the second and third and fourth activations will have stronger ignites. And after they die, the ignites will be proliferated, making clear a lot smoother in comparison to not having Holy Conquest. The main problem with Holy Conquest, on the other hand, is that while it's extremely nice for clears, it is extremely dangerous, I would say, for bossing. Whenever you have a strong boss, like a map boss, or even something like Cyrus, actually not Cyrus because you don't get ads there, but any ad introducing boss like Guardians and just a lot of map bosses in general, the Holy Conquest will have it so that every time that it can jump, it will jump to a new enemy. And we want strong ignites on our bosses, you know, the stuff that we want to kill the fastest. And with this node, with this notable, it makes it so that it's almost impossible to get a strong ignite on anything if there are constant flow of enemies coming in. And that's extremely dangerous because it means that the enemy will live for a much longer time, and our DPS, single target DPS, goes down by a huge margin. So I don't recommend using the Holy Conquest node. I've playtested this with my own character, and it does feel nice for mapping. It is terrible for single target. Another thing to add in that conversation is actually Swift brand. So I've played around more with Swift brand, and I feel like this is almost a mandatory support gem. And the main reason is it doesn't add damage at all. It doesn't add damage when you look at the large picture. Let's say you're fighting Cyrus. I would recommend you don't take Swift brand for Cyrus because there won't be any reason for you to detach your brands, and there aren't any ads that you have to kill quickly. It's just Cyrus. You want the strongest ignite possible, and in that case, you can drop Swift brand and take Swift Affliction, and that increases our damage by almost 40%. The reason why I recommend Swift brand for almost 99% of all content that you're doing is it makes surviving less difficult. The quicker stuff die, the less chance they'll have a chance to hit you. And Swift brand allows you to have more energy on the enemies and explode that energy quicker as it reaches 20 stacks. And the faster your energy explodes on your Penance brand, the faster you're going to get an ignite on them. And the faster you have an ignite on them, the quicker they'll die. And it doesn't matter how much ignite it is, you just need to have an ignite, because most ads, most trash packs will die with even one energy stack, right? So that's where I think Swift brand is almost necessary. You can try and use mostly Hydrosphere along with brand recall to kind of circumvent some of the mapping issues, but I think it's just better to use Swift brand. And maybe if you get a white gem socket on your chest piece, you can go ahead and do a swap for Swift Affliction for harder content that needs more single target DPS. Outside of that, the other gem slots, the other gem setups that I've added is Enduring Cry, like I mentioned, with Second Wind, Arcane Surge, and Flame Dash. The second one, because Enduring Cry is not instant anymore from Call to Arms, it gives us a second charge of Enduring Cry, which makes it so that we have, which gives us a lot more flexibility in when we want to recover our health. And Enduring Cry's recovery is actually really strong, right? It's almost 2,000 life over 1 second, and we have 6,000 life, so it's a health pot that we have every, I think, like 6 seconds. It's super nice. The Hydrosphere setup is still the same. Penance brand is the same. I got a 6 link off of a ritual, so that was really nice. Vigilant Strike. I have Vigilant Strike with Ancestral Call. This is so that I don't ever miss my Vigilant Strikes, because if you don't have Ancestral Call, you can often miss because you don't have, like, the enemies can move out of the way, and having Ancestral Call just makes it so that you have 2 more chances to get Vigilant Strike, because if any of your extra strikes hit, then they also give you Fortify. And the last thing we have is Steel Skin. Reason why we're not using Endurance Call is because our endurance charges aren't as frequent, because it's based on the cooldown of Enduring Cry. So I didn't want to consume endurance charges when we don't have a good way of recovering it. For items, like I mentioned, I'm using a princess. It's quite sad, but mathematically speaking, like, for a simple, like, it's not even an alch, like, it gives us 27% ignite DPS, right? So it's really nice, all things considered. Are there better weapons that we can use? Of course, right? Just anything with flame or fire multi, and cast speed. I think cast speed is really important, and just fire damage, lightning gems, skill gems, anything like that will add far more damage than what this will. And if you manage to get a shaper weapon with good mods of extra fizz to cold, along with fire damage, along with fire multi, stuff like that, that will give you significantly more damage. But I don't really have that option to buy things. Even if I have a lot of currency, I have to craft things on my own. So this is what I'm using right now. Shield, same thing, just a lot of life. I don't even need the resistances, so eventually I'll try to look for something that I can add damage onto. Maybe I can get a +1 spell shield, +1 to spell gem shield, or even like fire damage as extra chaos with like harvest craft. Helmet, just same thing, just life. I'm using this because it has fizz to fire. Fizz damage hits taken as fire. It's extremely nice. I'm still farming for my Eye of Malice. I believe Eye of Malice gives us like 23% more damage. It's pretty huge. Then we have a body armor, just a 6 sync that I got. I also got a Cloak of Defiance. So I was thinking about maybe a Mind Over Matter setup and dropping Mind Over Matter with Archmage. But I think I'm gonna put that off for a different time, because it required me to 6 link the Cloak of Defiance in the first place, and I don't really see that happening right now. Gloves, this is probably where I can improve the most. If I just add a glove that has any glove that has Crusader and Fizz to Lightning with 25%, I guess it doesn't really matter. Yeah, but having making sure that I have 100% of my Penance brand damage converted to lightning or cold would make sure that I can run Fizz Reflect maps, because currently I can't run either Fizz Reflect or LA Reflect, because Penance brand currently has a little bit of physical damage, and even without scaling the hit, having multiple Penance brand energies go off on a pack means I just instantly die. So that would be a good quality of life. It's not really that important, which is why I dropped Fizz to lightning support in the first place. Boots, nothing special, just life and movement speed. Same thing with amulet. This is another place where I can improve the most. I want to get a decent enough amulet where I wouldn't feel bad spending my oils to anoint Burning Brutality. This is mathematically the best node that I can get with 13% ignite DPS. I have the oils, it's just I don't have enough for a second one. And because oils are rather difficult to come by unless I target farm Blight, I want to make sure I'm using it on a amulet that's not just stats and health, attributes and health, because this is all that is. Rings are just life and resistances. And belt, I just managed to grab this one. It's not too different from just a life and resistance belt, but it has flask effect duration, which is super nice. I also got an Atziri's flask from running the Atziri thing. I don't know what it's called, but I got it off the first drop, so it's really nice. Atziri's flask actually gives us a huge amount of damage. And that's about it with the gear. I would maybe run something like Roomies. I think Roomies would be the best addition because it raises our block chance it basically gives us block cap on physical damage and then a good chunk of spell block. So that'll be another improvement that we can make. But outside of that, I think this build is quite strong. Actually really strong. If you know what you're doing, if you're building towards its strengths, you don't need to worry so much about your damage. A lot of your damage will just come from your skill tree with like elemental overload, elemental equilibrium, and just quick fire nodes here and there. Everything else you can focus defensively because you just don't need that much damage until you get to higher tier maps. And if you're using this as a starter, that's exactly what you want, right? Overall, I think this build has a lot more potential. I'm gonna keep working on it until I get to Awakener 8, I believe, and see what I can do with a little bit more time and a little bit more currency. But thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.